Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter again. Second video in a row today. Oh my gosh, can you stand it? We're gonna paint. We're gonna paint a goldfinch. Somebody had asked for me to show how to paint a goldfinch on my YouTube channel, so that's what we're gonna do today in less than 20 minutes, hopefully. I better start gabbing. I better stop gabbing so we can get this show on the road. All right, let's go to the table. What was up with that crazy editing? That was insane. Alright, so actually we're going to go a little out of order here because I've already got this bird sketched on my watercolor card. We're going to paint the background because that's going to take some time to dry. Then I'm going to show you how to sketch this. So basically what I'm going to do is wet the entire paper using a 1-inch flat. Is it 1 inch or is that bigger? No, it's a 1 inch. This is a Cotman. I think most of the brushes that have the acrylic handle are pretty good. And I'm going to put in some, I'm going to start introducing the colors I plan on using. I'm going to use a little lemon yellow. And I'm just going to put it on the bird and just let it sit. I'm not going to try to paint anything too specifically right now. Use a little bit of green, sap green. These are actually Cotman watercolors that I'm using. They're not artist quality, but they're not bad. They're a great student quality paint to work with. I've got this little set here. I lost my alizarin crimson. I've got to replace that. But it's a great little beginner set. And I think a little burnt sienna. I should have spritzed my palette before I began because my color's a little wishy-washy. That's alright though. And I want to darken up a little bit of that green. It's a little dull. A little more of that burnt sienna in there. And I'd like to also introduce gray at this time, and I like to use ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt sienna in that for some gray, and just to kind of give me a nice neutral, because I know I'll need to have some gray in my painting for shadows and whatnot, so I like to get that in there in the background. I always try to get my background colors worked in so that everything has color harmony throughout the painting. So now what I'm going to do is actually flick on some of the colors that I've used. And I also want to get some mauve in there because I want to have some thistle. And since I have different palettes that I'll use from time to time. This palette has a lot of different colors in it, and mauve is one of them. It's just a nice reddish purple, and since I don't have any alizarin crimson in this palette, this will give me a nice cool red option too. Plus it brings out, this purpley color brings out the gold in my bird. So so it's really just nice to have that complementary color in there, and I think I'm going to flick in a little bit of that yellow too. Alright, now I want to make sure that I don't have anything that's going to be difficult to lift up on top of my bird, so I need to grab a tissue or a paper towel. Hold on a moment. Here we go. Do your paper towels go off on adventures without you? I'm telling you, my paper towels tend to wander all over the basement. The towels went on an adventure without me. Alright, so I'm just going to lift that up there, and actually at this point I think I'm going to paint in the tail because I want that to be blurry. Now see how I have this puddle at the end? Now if I leave that alone, I'm going to have a bloom there, which is kind of like a roughly edge shape, and that's not really what I want for this particular piece. I want it to be a soft blended background, so I just, with the edge of my paper towel, I'm just lifting up that those puddles, and the color will blend in there a little bit more, but I just want to make sure that I don't have any really big puddles. Now I can crumple this up and tap on there and give it a little texture too if I want to. If you want to, you can do that. I don't know where that came from. That's not a Maine accent. I don't even know if it's Southern, I don't know. Okay, so let's make I'm gonna make my gray again, but I'll make it pretty dark. I'm gonna do the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Oh my gosh, you know what I did? I just banged my palette and set all my pans on an adventure. Everything goes on an adventure in here. It's a crafty adventure show. Crafty adventure time. Oh my goodness gracious. I don't know if we're gonna get this done in 20 minutes. I'm screwing around too much. I don't even know where my ultramarine blue ended up. I think it's here. No, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Oh my, there's my burnt sienna. in ultramarine. Give me a nice dark gray. I'm not gonna pick up my palette again. No good will come of it. All right, I'm just gonna paint in the tail because that's gonna be slightly out of focus and I want that to remain in the background. So I'm just painting it in on the damp paper. I don't want it to blend too much. So I'm drying my brush off on the paper towel and going in there and just kind of moving it around a bit to remove any excess moisture that might make it travel a little bit. And a little bit of gold on that tail. And more of that brown. Alright, so this has got to dry. I'm going to set it aside where I can't knock it over or do anything crazy to it while it's drying. I've got like water. See, I think I know how I lost my alizarin crimson pan. I probably banged into it and it went flying. And I picked up every one but that one. Okay, still appear to be just missing the crimson. Oh, I should probably start this video over, but you know, it's not going to happen. Alright, so I'm going to draw a bird here. Pretty easy. Let me just move my reference photo over there. And we're going to start and do this with a pencil, but I'm going to start with an oval. The bird's body. Got this little shape for the tail. Gonna put a circle for the head. And go really lightly with a pencil so you can erase the lines you don't want. I'll do the beak. Feathers, wings there, and a little bit of nubby there for that wing. Got the branch he's resting on. This foot's over here, this foot's here. My phone's ringing. You gotta hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. A field trip has been canceled. That's it's raining out. You ever get the feeling that you're just you get all these factors against you when you're trying to work? All right, so yeah, let's put some little thistle plants here. And yeah, let's do a couple of these. And you know what? You can make it however you want. A little branch up here. You know, fill in your space however you like. A little eyeball there. You really don't need to get in too much with this detail because you're going to paint that. But, you know, just get the basic shape, get the basic nuances of everything. And a big tip that I would like to share with you, and I'd like you to share this with your children if they're interested in drawing, don't start with the details. Like if I started drawing this, okay, if you want to pause this and catch up with the drawing, go ahead right now. Okay, so if you want to draw, and you see this all the time, kids will be drawing, and they'll start with a detail, and they'll get that detail, like that beak, you know, they'll make it just so, and they'll, you know, spend a lot of time with this, and then they'll go do the body, and it's completely wrong. So don't start with the detail. Start with the basic shapes, and then, you know, add on to that. You'll get a much better composition overall, and then you won't have to erase the whole thing once you realize that it's all out of whack. All right, I'm gonna pick up my thing here. It's still not dry. I'm gonna pause the video, take it over to the heat gun, dry it, and come back and we're gonna start painting the details. All right, we got that pretty well dry. I'm gonna jump right in and start working on the bird. And I'm gonna gently just dampen the paper where the bird is. I don't want it to be puddly wet. I want it to be just damp. So it will help the paint flow. I'm just going above the branch up into just under the eye. I'm going to go into the beak area. I'm just going to work on the yellows right now. And I'm going to start with lemon yellow up here. I'm using 2 buckets of water. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and get a little closer for you. There. I use 2 buckets of water. I use 1 bucket to clean my brush off in, and then I use another bucket for fresh water. I actually have a divided bucket so I can put half and half. Works out well. Now I am going to use 2 shades of yellow with this one. I am going to also use cadmium red, or you can use new gamboge, whatever you have that's more of a warm yellow. See how the color temperature difference between the lemon yellow and the cadmium yellow. And even if you go and you get, like, this is student quality paint. This is not my artist quality paint. Works very well. I just would have some synthetic, like instead of having real cadmium, this may be a synthetic cadmium. which is great for students, especially children, because you don't want them exposed to the heavy metal, heavy metal content. Somewhat poisonous, and I am just filling in gently the bottom of that. Now, I want to make sure I go to the outside of my sketch. Now I'm going to actually add some shadow color in there, and so there's a couple different ways I can do that. Go here. I have yellow. I've already used mauve. If I mix those two together, I'm going to end up with a decent shadow color. So I'm mixing that on my palette, and I don't want to bring my palette back over here because I'm liable to dump it on the floor again. So, but I'm just using a little bit of mauve in my yellow. You could also mix up a little purple, add it in your yellow. You could use the grade that we make when we use the ultramarine plus burnt sienna if you're already using those colors. But I highly suggest that you make your own grays because they're going to look a lot more natural. They're going to match your painting better, and you're going to become a better painter for it because you're going to know how to make those colors. And I'm going to put a little bit under the chin, and notice how I'm just using the corner of my brush here. I'm not even switching brushes. I'm just going under the corner of my brush. You can really, I suggest that you start off with a limited palette, limited amount of brushes, and see what you can do with them. It's so easy to collect a ton of supplies and then feel overwhelmed because you don't know how to use any of them. So by starting off with a few brushes, I'll show you what I really like. I like a round brush, like a number 6 round, a 1/2 inch flat, and a 1 inch wash. You know, start off with those and then build. I also love a number 10 inch round. I find that a little daunting for a beginner, but you know, I mean, start with a few and work your way out. All right, so now I'm going to use a little sap green. I'm going to paint some of the branches. And I'm just, this is a pretty small card. I don't think I really need to wet them first. And again, I'm using my flat. Learn what your brushes can do. You could do this with a round if you wanted to. I'm not going to do this part because I don't want it to bleed into my yellow, so I'm just going to leave that for right now. I'm going to grab one of the yellows I've already used. I think I'll use the cadmium yellow so it's not too vibrant. And add a little bit of that in there to that branch. And I'll also be using that for this branch the bird's resting on eventually, but not right now because I don't want it to get blended into my yellow. And I'm going to get some color for the thistle stalk. I think I want kind of a burnt sienna for that. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of sap green into it just to make it feel a little bit more planty. And look at the strokes I'm using for that. I'm just kind of wiggling my brush, tap, tap, wiggle, wiggle, tap, tap, wiggle, wiggle. Are you ready to wiggle? We were talking about that the other day. My kids used to love the wiggles, especially my son when he was little. And he used to go, Mama Wiggles, Mama Wiggles. Oh, he's going to be so embarrassed. It was the cutest thing. And he was doing that the other day. Oh my gosh, he's going to be so embarrassed. But I thought that was the cutest thing. You just want to give them whatever they want. They go, Mama Wiggles. Then he goes, Mama, Avengers. Still cute, not as cute. Mama, Iron Man. It's still pretty cute. Yeah. I let him watch Iron Man. Okay, so I feel like this is a little too stark looking. Stark! Like Tony Stark! Iron Man. Oh, wow, full circle. So I think what I'm going to do, let's switch to the round. Let's play with that a little bit and see what we can do here. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. And I think I'll just kind of just pull up some, whatchamacallit, just shrubbery, I guess. And go in a little burnt with a little sap green, because sap green is, I think, my favorite watercolor color. I love it. I love it. It just livens up so much. And let's paint our thistle on with some mauve. I'm going to use a straight mauve to be in. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of, with my brush straight up and down, see how I'm holding it straight up and down, I'm just flicking the paint, the mauve. Going into both the middle of the hip area of the flower, flicking out the little, whatchamacallit. And there's something else I want to tell you. So the palette that I showed you, you could buy a kit like that, has all the pans in it, and then you can replace the pans as you need it. Well, each of these pans is a little rectangle of plastic. little cup pretty much. So look at this mauve. I've actually refilled that with artist quality paint. So after you use up a color, you can refill it with whatever you want to, whatever your favorite brand is, so you don't have to throw that away. It is an investment. When you purchase paints, it's an investment. So so think of it like that as you're working. You know, nothing you buy is going to be wasted. I'm taking some burnt sienna and adding some ultramarine blue to this, and I'm going to make a nice dark color because the bottom of the thistle here is a little bit darker, but I want it to also have colors that I've already used, and I want it to be able to kind of blend into the stock. Add some sap green to that, and at this point I kind of like to just drip the colors in and let them do their thing. I think that's why I really like watercolor. A lot of people feel like it's kind of out of control, but I like that you just get a completely different look than you're going to get in pretty much any other media. Alright, so now another thing I could do if I had like either a piece of cut up credit card or the back of my brush, I can actually pull in some detail from these stalks just by scraping, which will either push the paint away or it will scribe into the paper, depending on how wet or dry my paint is. If the paint's really wet, it seems to let me push the color off and reveal the white of the paper. If it's really wet, it tends to scratch in. If it's drier, it tends to scratch in and scribe the paper and give me a darker line. So just kind of play with that. Again, we're learning how to use our tools so we get the most out of them. Get those thorny thistles in there. Alright, I'm just going to try to find a clean spot in my hand, just kind of touch the paper. And if it's cool to the touch, it's still a little damp. If it's not warm nor cool, then it's dry. Just a little tip there for you. And I think I want to just have some undefined splotchy thistles back here. So what I'm going to do is use my flat brush. Use a round if you're more comfortable with it. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to tap in some, it's kind of like, it's not background, but it's not foreground, it's just kind of like a loose indication, kind of just, you're just hinting that there's something back here, there's some more, what do you want to call it, there's some more plant life. It's not as defined as these thistles, but it's not as undefined as the purple in the background. So you're just basically adding another level of depth. And remember, we have cameras. We can take photographs if we want a photographic representation of something. We are artists, and we are, we're just suggesting. The brain knows what a finch looks like. The brain knows what thistles look like. And we are just suggesting what's there, and the brain will fill in the rest. It's kind of awesome. So when in doubt, do less. When in doubt, leave it out. Okay, that's my motto with painting. I used to work for a man, and he used to say, when in doubt, throw it out. When we were working on like downsizing or organizing, he'd say, when in doubt, throw it out. My painting motto is, when in doubt, leave it out. You can always go back in and add it later. Usually, not always, not with the highlights, but you can usually go back in and add it later. All right, I actually think that's a little too dark. I'm gonna press it, paper towel on there, just lighten it a little bit. Let's lift up some of that, and that's going to be good. Alright, so I think I'm going to run this over to the heat gun again, dry it up so that we can put some more details on the bird. Be back in a second. Alright, we're going to finish this up quickly because we're almost out of time. I'm using my round brush, and I am going to paint the eye and the eye area. I'm just going to try to leave little sparkles there. If we kind of obliterate the eye, we'll just go in and put some, we'll just dig a sparkle out with an X-Acto knife later. I'm going to put in the wing. Again, this mixture is ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm going to just a little touch of that on the tail just to kind of, very, very dry brush here. A little bit of touch on the tail there just to bring it out. Do the legs with a mix of cad yellow and mauve. It's going to make it kind of like a pinky brown. Little feet there. Going to do the branch with a little sap green and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna with that so it's a little dull. And that's pretty much going to finish up our picture. I want to thank you so much for watching, and requesting the bird video. Again, use a knife and dig out the highlight if you need to. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.